Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Rabil Stock Research. So for anyone new, just want to let you know what I've been doing is providing technical stock research and consulting to institutional investors for the past 35 years or so. And what I like to do, I'm a bottom-up investor, so I go through thousands and thousands of charts. Just realize the institutional guys are looking at this as a relative game. We're trying to find the best stocks no matter whether the market's going up or going down. So because of that, I do go through all these charts looking for stocks that we could take advantage of, especially in a market decline. Okay, so I like to lean on relative strength during that, but one of the things we're going to look for and what I'm going to show you today are some stocks that are actually a little bit overbought right now. And if we do get a little bit of continuation to the downside in a market pullback, I think this could lead to some opportunities. So I want to go through those stocks that I think have the potential to maybe provide a nice little entry here coming up. Then I also am going to go through the S&P in detail, frame it out, show you where support levels are, kind of what to expect, and then we'll look at the symbol requests that came through. Let's go ahead and get going. Okay, so I've got about a handful of stocks here. I want to look at it, and we're going to start out, make sure you understand. I got the monthly in the bottom left, weekly in the bottom right, daily in the upper right, and another weekly here, but I've got the relative strength, right, and we've got the RSIs down here. All right, so I like to look at it in this fashion, and I do start from this monthly chart, work my way to here, then to here, and then look at it this way. So this is a good way of just training your brain to look at the patterns and look at the big time frame and work our way down to the smaller ones, and then see if anything significant is showing up, especially based on relative strength. Now, almost every one of the stocks that I'm going to show you highlighting are showing signs of improvement like this, or they could be from a basing standpoint, but they're showing good relative strength. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is that I'm actually looking for pullbacks in most of the stocks in this list. So the highlights I'm trying to find are stocks where if the market pulls back here, which I think it might have a little bit more room to pull back, then we want to take advantage of the stocks that are showing real strong relative strength and emerging at a basis at the same time. So if we look at the way this has played out, it's been holding the 18-month line. The MACD, which is crossed down below its signal line, is actually making lower lows while price is making higher lows and holding the 18, which is above the 40, and they're moving up at about the same rate. The one thing I was looking for was actually like this little breakout pattern, and that's actually happening this morning. So I think it's hard to ignore based on the way this is playing out. We had a low ADX condition in place. We have a low ADX condition in place here, and now we're getting this little breakout pattern. Now, to be safe, you'd wait for a little bit of a test and a higher low to form, but I do think that's an operable signal here just based on the way this is played out. And again, we have kind of all the pieces to the puzzle working our way. Look at the strength of the ADX on the monthly prior to the pullback. That tells us it's a pretty good chance we're going to get another leg to the upside. All right, let's go and look at some of the names I'm looking for a pullback. So we look at the strength of the move in Boeing here. All right, this is new strength. We're showing improvement on a relative basis. We're very overbought right now. So if we can get a pullback that works its way a little bit closer to the 18-week after this low ADX move where the green DI is basically breaking out, showing the buyers are very strong on this move to the upside. Now, look at the monthly chart. I mean, this is a huge base that's formed, right? We're getting a little pinch play, follow through right at the zero line here. Again, low ADX condition, but we're showing strength on the daily chart, and that's usually where things kick off. Look at this healthcare stock turning the corner. We're seeing more and more stocks in the healthcare area kind of forming this basing pattern and breaking out of bases. This is a low ADX pattern, and now the ADX is crossing above 25. Also notice this little bit of accumulation showing up. We can see it in the volume here. Look at all these accumulation days showing up. So again, we're looking for a pullback, but this is a stock that we should keep an eye on. Look at this copper stock, Freeport. All the copper stocks have been trading really well. Really a lot of good action in the basic materials sector, but we need a pullback. We need this to come back down. Now, again, this is having a good day today. Market is actually up this morning, but notice how it was up yesterday as well. It's kind of ignoring the market, but I'm kind of hoping that if we get a deeper pullback in the market, that this will give us a chance to buy this maybe a little bit closer to this breakout area on a little bit of a pullback after showing good new relative ADX action, and look at the relative strength line breaking out as well. HTHT, this is in the hotels area industry group. Look at this base breakout on the weekly and look at the move in the ADX. Look at the volume pattern. I mean, they're really doing some serious buying in this. So we're looking for a pullback somewhere in the mid to low 40s as an opportunity. Obviously, if the market can pull this down, that's what we'd be looking for. It should still have good relative strength, but maybe it pulls back in the short term. That would be really kind of ideal. And then look at something like this specialty chemical stock. Again, look at the way the 18-month is turning around. We're holding the 18-month instead of failing at it, right? And then we get this big green bar on big volume coming out of a low ADX pattern, starting to see that. Show itself with the ADX crossing 25 here for the first time in a few months. So looking for a pullback on that one as well, but really nice breakout pattern. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. So I'm on the services page of rabilstockresearch.com. At the top, you can see I've got my advanced trend and momentum courses. There's 3 different courses. You can get a discount if you buy them all as a bundle. They are lifetime access now, all right? And also, the individual package has about 3 to 4 reports that come each week, plus a special video for that package. And I also do a once-a-month webinar that is very popular with the subscribers. So you can take a look there. If you're interested in just getting started, you can go up to the top and hit the book. This will give you information on the book. It gets you started on the approach. Okay, let's start out with the market conditions, and I do want to start with the bottom sentiment here. All right, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. The sentiment based on the Investors Intelligence Investment Survey has jumped up to 44%. That means we have 44% more bulls than bears. The bulls are almost at 60% now. This is definitely a negative for the market. It's not a good sign. It's interesting that it's not taking into account yesterday's decline. All right, the way it works, it's from Wednesday to Wednesday, so most of the letters are written over the weekend, and so they don't have that taken into account. So you can see their underlying thought process was getting more and more bullish leading up to this. So I'm sort of expecting a pretty decent sized drop next week in this, but it still provides sort of a negative signal here. All right, the overbought oversold oscillator using an RSI 5 has dropped down to neutral. It was getting pretty close to overbought. It's now right in that neutral territory after the drop yesterday, and then we did get a jump in the volatility on the daily just after one bad day. That was a monster bar when you look at it from an average true range standpoint. So it moved it to neutral, means that the volatility is increasing, and we need to be aware of that, especially for shorter term trading. Now the trend and momentum, we still have positive trend and on both the monthly and the weekly. The daily after yesterday again had that violent day down, broke below both the 18 and the 40. So we put that in the neutral camp. Monthly trend momentum is still okay, not great, but it's good enough to call positive. Weekly is neutral, but the daily is really shifting quickly. I'll show you that as we go through the charts. Let's go ahead and get into the charts right now. Okay, let's start out looking at the volatility, and that's this second scale here that I've widened so you can really see what's going on. Big decline through October of last year, and then we got a little bit of a pop, and then really late last year it started to decline again. Now, when we're in a declining phase where the moving average is declining, then that's actually positive. When it's rising here, that's negative, and then this has been a positive period. Now, if you notice, just with this one day, this 1 day drop, we got a little pop here that kind of turned it to neutral as the actual average true range pops above the moving average. It's 18 MA that I use. All right, so we're going to have to see if that follows through and gets this moving average to turn to the upside. If that were to happen, then we would turn that market condition to negative because the volatility is really increasing. We don't really have confirmed evidence yet. We definitely don't have any evidence of a reversal on the longer term weekly. So the conditions are okay from a bigger picture standpoint. Where I would get concerned is if we break both of these lines are representing the 18-week line. If we break the 18-week line, I think there's more risk, certainly down to the next support level, but what could be this 18-month line underneath, which is around 6,200, something like that in the S&P. I think we'd have some risk of something like that happening if we truly break the 18-week and it starts to roll here. So something we have to stay conscious of, because we already tested it on 1 day drop. We already have tested this line. If we get any further follow through either later in the week or early next week, then I think we'd have to be concerned that the volatility is going to go up and the risk measures, we've already got, as I mentioned, the sentiment really up, right? So we're in a position where I think we could use a deeper pullback. Now, it might only need to come down to 6,500 in the S&P, but I'm just telling you, if it gets a little slippery, it's very possible we come down and test this prior low and test the 18-month, and I think that would do a really nice cleansing of the sentiment. I think we get people, to really flip from positive from bullish to bearish, and it could set up another nice buying opportunity. All right, so right now we're showing our first signs of little pop in the volatility on the daily chart. Certainly something to watch. Now, I did want to mention this RSI has dropped down under the 50 mark. And it got down to like 45 yesterday. So if it were to fail underneath the 50 mark and turn down on any kind of a rally here, I think that would be a pretty big negative. But we need a better rally than we've gotten so far to confirm that. Because all we've gotten are buy signals on the RSI. We haven't had any sell signals since this bottom has occurred last year. So if we got the flip side of that, we got an RSI sell signal, I would get pretty concerned about what that would mean. All right, let's take a look at the S&P in 4 different time frames. As I mentioned last week, we've had this sort of stalling pattern that's developed on the monthly. We had big green bars, and now we've just kind of stalled out, trying to push higher and not having any follow through. So you would think that you would get some kind of a little dip or pullback or correction that would follow that. But in order for that to happen, we're going to have to break the 18-week. We came down and tested it back in November of last year. But then when we went to a new high, we had no follow through. So I'm considering this a failed new high, and we're at risk of breaking this 476 area. 676.80 is the 18-week line. I think if we were to break that, that it would obviously increase the risk pattern. So what we're looking for is this to kind of fail at the 18-day and then put more pressure on the 18-week. And we got DI to pop. We got a little breakout in the negative DI showing the sellers are finally kind of kicked in here for the first time in several months. Doesn't mean they have to follow through and break this 18-week, but it's something we need to be on the lookout for. We're starting to show some signs on the hourly chart. You can really see it develop with the strength to the downside, confirmed by MACD, confirmed by ADX, and now the question becomes, do we hit a failure setup at the 18 on the hourly? All right, so if we get that to happen, then we'll get to our lower high on the daily chart, and we're going to put a lot of pressure on this weekly line. All right, something we want to be on the lookout for, simply because we've never gotten the DI on the weekly chart to break out. All right, so I just think we're in a vulnerable position right now based on all the bulls, and the price pattern is not really giving us a comforting feeling, especially if we fail at the 685, 686 area on any further push to the upside. All right, let's move on to the individual symbols though. Okay, I do always like to look at the IWM before we get into the individual symbols, and it's a good thing. We want to see this. This is up 1.34%, leading the way today. I know the S&P is having a good day, but just the way this is holding up on a relative basis, look at what's taking place on the relative line. This is what I was looking for, to get something a little bit more definitive, and we're getting this moving average line to start to turn to the upside. I really think this is a good sign. Now, it's not just because I'm looking at an index and seeing it move up and on the relative basis. I look at thousands and thousands of charts, and we're seeing stocks that really haven't done much in a while start to show signs of improvement. And so it's a plus for the market. That's not a negative that we're seeing all these stocks popping. So I know that what's taking place is that we're getting a correction in the big names, right? And that money is not leaving the market. It's moving into other areas. And I think that's why we're seeing the pop and the relative strength, emerging relative strength in some of these other areas and some of these other stocks. Some of the ones that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So we want to keep an eye out for those stocks. And I do believe you're better off looking at the stocks rather than the index. The index could scare you away from being a buyer. Make sure we get pullbacks in some of the leading stocks, but if it's under control, I would look to take advantage of it. Now, I do want to take a look at Bitcoin because I really don't like the look of this pattern. It looks to me like it's failing underneath this 100,000 mark, which I thought it would reach the 100,000 mark. It didn't quite get there, but that's even weaker. Look at the weekly. The weekly has rallied back to the 18-week line, but it did it in a way that really isn't attractive. This was not a vertical rally, right? It's more of a sideways consolidation pattern. And MACD has formed a pinch play to the downside. We still got pretty good strength based on the ADX. So, I mean, just based on this overall pattern. Now, I think the positive here is that we showed pretty good strength on a momentum basis on the way up. But we did the same thing back here, and it didn't prevent it going through a pretty substantial correction phase. All right, so I'm a little more concerned. If we were to take out this low down here around 80, I think we'd get confirmation. But looking at this rally, I don't know. It just seems like to me that there's more risk of this, and certainly coming back down to that 80 level as a test, and maybe even 75 is where the bigger support comes in, is where this is headed for a better test. So I think there's some risk in this in the short term. I'm not saying it's going to fall apart like it did back in here and go through an extensive correction, but there could be a little bit more downside risk in the near term. All right, and now I did want to also mention, look at this commodity index. I brought this up a few weeks ago, but look at what's taking place here. We're getting a breakout in this taking place, and it's not surprising, again, as I go through and look at all the basic materials and you see what's taking place in some of the commodity-based stocks. Look at this turn with the MACD turning right around the zero line. Pretty interesting. I think, if we got any real help if crude really got going here, then this thing would really kick in, because I think crude plays a pretty big weight in this. But still, even without crude doing a whole lot, this has really set itself up. And now, again, with a little help there, a little follow through to the upside, I think, you can see this really get going. So I did want to mention that. All right, let's take a look at some of the symbol requests that came through. So Apple has broken its 18-week line. Now it's the next test is the 18-month. And the way it's coming into it, it didn't show a lot of strength here. It did on the weekly. But the weekly 18 is starting to roll over a little bit. So I'm sort of expecting this to form a trading range. But the support might not come in till we get down to this next support zone right around 225 or something like that. So I would not be in a big hurry to be jumping into that. If it holds the 18-month, it's probably going to take a little bit of time to get itself turned around. So no big rush to be a buyer. I think there's enough support here to keep it in a trading range rather than really rolling over, but not a big hurry to buy this. Now, CAVA has been in a trend to the downside, and now we've broken the 18-week line for the first time. This was basically failure at that line. This certainly was. This didn't reach it, but essentially we were below the 18 and the 40, and now we're putting a test to that. It looks like the 18 is starting to turn up. Now, what we need to have happen is the 18 to actually hold on a pullback. All right. If MACD were holding the signal line, I think that would be a good sign that we're putting in a better reversal pattern. Now, it doesn't mean we're turning in and making a big turn to the upside. We're going to need more than that. Based on what this looks like, we're going to need a move up, a hold, another move up, and another hold like that to really turn the corner in this. So I would not be in a huge hurry to be jumping all over this. I know there's signs of improvement. We've seen a little momentum come in and everything, but if you're a trader, you can play the next pullback to the 18. But I don't think I would be doing much after that. All right, the INCY, I had the mention of this from someone who sent in this symbol, and I just want to point out, if you look at this from a bigger picture standpoint, you got to take this into account. This is really important. Look at this low ADX pattern, and then look at the volume that came in. I mean, this is something pretty important that is developing here. The problem is, like a lot of the stocks I talked about at the beginning, we need a pullback. We need this to correct a little bit. Now, it doesn't show that on the weekly, but I would love to see this consolidate a little bit, let the 18-month catch up, and maybe just pause working sideways here. And with the new momentum that's in place and the volume pattern and everything, this could be a stock that could really play. We've seen some of these big biotechs trading pretty well. So I would keep an eye on this. I think if this can work its way down a little bit, if it ends up breaking down a little bit, I would be watching the mid to high 80s as a potential opportunity if it does pull back. MU is a stock that is getting a little crazy. I would actually be looking to be a profit taker here. Doesn't mean you have to sell the whole thing, although I think it's getting a little ridiculous the way this is playing out. So I would be on the lookout sometime. One thing I was looking for is a big bar. If this turned into a big bar, or if next week does that, or if you start the week at a new high and then close down for the week, either of those signs would be a pretty big negative for me based on the way this is trading. So want to be aware of that. You can see the monthly is kind of doing that, but I'd like to see that either on a daily or a weekly. You see how this is the biggest bar in the move after it's made a pretty big run? So that's sort of a sign of an exhaustion, but I'd love to see that happen again on the weekly or the daily. All right, NVDA, one of the things I'm watching for on this is this sort of neckline area. It hasn't broken it yet, but I think if we were to get that, it would just put a little bit more risk of this coming all the way down to this 150 mark, which I think what it wants to do anyway, but we get a little bit more confirmation by breaking that neckline. Now, finally, the PLTR, same thing. I'm looking at this 150 mark. Right? I think if we break the 150 mark, then this is going to go through a much deeper, longer correction than what most people are probably expecting. It's been kind of working sideways. That could be just a pause in an ongoing trend, but I think if it breaks the 150 mark, it's probably at risk of coming down a little bit deeper before it's ready to turn back to the upside. Thanks for watching. If you have any stock requests, you can send them to stocktalk@stockcharts.com or just put them in the comment area below. Also, if you want to learn more about some of these techniques, you can go to my YouTube channel. It's called Joe Rabil RSR. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.